Help me reach 2,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. When Elizabeth came home that night, I knew something was different before she even spoke. The house felt heavier, like the air had been disturbed and never settled back. I was standing in the kitchen, pretending to clean an already clean counter, listening to the front door click shut. She didn't call my name. No greeting, no sigh, no familiar sound. Just silence. 13 years of marriage teaches you patterns, and that silence didn't belong to us. It belonged to something else, something newly arrived, something that didn't care I existed. Elizabeth dropped her keys on the table and walked past me like I was furniture. She smelled like rain and unfamiliar cologne, the kind you notice only after it's already too late. I followed her into the living room, not touching her, not stopping her, just watching. She sat down, crossed her legs, and stared at the blank television screen. That's when I felt the slow, sick realization that I wasn't about to ask a question I wanted answered. I was about to ask one I already knew. I cleared my throat, buy myself a second I didn't deserve. Did you have a long day? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. She nodded without looking at me. That nod carried more distance than any argument we'd ever had. If this story already feels uncomfortably familiar, please tap like so it reaches people who might be standing in the same silence right now. I sat on the edge of the chair across from her, hands folded, heart racing, trying to remember when my home stopped feeling safe. We used to talk about everything. Work stress, dumb shows, plans that never went anywhere but made us laugh anyway. Somewhere along the way, those conversations faded into logistics and polite updates. Bills, groceries, schedules. I told myself it was normal, that real marriages weren't movies. But that night, watching Elizabeth avoid my eyes, I understood something had crossed a line. This wasn't routine distance. This was separation pretending to be peace. I leaned forward and asked the question I'd rehearsed all afternoon. Do you still love me? My voice stayed calm, but my body braced for impact. Elizabeth exhaled slowly, like she was deciding how honest to be. If you've ever asked someone a question you were afraid to hear answered, tell me in the comments. Did you already know the truth before they spoke? She finally looked at me then, and there was no anger there, no guilt either, just resolve. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could hear in my ears. I swallowed and said, "When you came home tonight, I had to ask myself something." She tensed. I continued anyway. I need to know if there's someone else. The room felt impossibly quiet. I paused, then said the name that had been burning in my chest for weeks. Is it Derek? Elizabeth didn't answer. She didn't shake her head. She didn't deny it. She just went completely still. In that silence, memories crashed into me all at once. Late nights she claimed were meetings, sudden privacy with her phone, the way she flinched when I touched her. I realized I wasn't shocked by her reaction. I was devastated by its confirmation. My chest tightened, but my mind felt painfully clear. This was the moment everything before and after would revolve around. If silence ever answered a question, this was it. Comment the word silence if you felt the weight of this moment the same way I did. I sat there waiting for her to speak, knowing that whatever came next would end the life I thought I had, and begin something I wasn't ready to name. The clock ticked loudly on the wall, mocking my patience. She stared at the floor, breathing shallow, choosing avoidance over truth. I understood then that answers don't always come as words. Sometimes they arrive as absence, and you're forced to decide what that absence means for the rest of your life. And that decision, once made, cannot be undone, no matter how much you wish the past could explain itself. Nothing ever feels the same after truth refuses to speak. When Elizabeth finally spoke, it wasn't denial. It was quieter than that. I didn't plan this, she said, her voice flat. It just happened. I nodded, because there was nothing left to argue. Planning didn't matter. Intent didn't matter. The result sat between us like broken glass. I asked how long. She hesitated, then whispered, "A few months." My chest tightened. Not because of the length, but because I had felt every one of those months without knowing why. I thought about every night I waited up, every excuse I accepted. The truth didn't arrive suddenly. It had been leaking into my life slowly, drop by drop. I stood up, legs unsteady, and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet, ordinary, cruelly unchanged. Elizabeth asked what I was thinking. I didn't turn around. I told her I was thinking about how long I'd been alone while standing next to her. She cried then, finally, like tears could rewind time. They didn't. I told her I was done. No shouting. No threats. Just a statement of fact. I packed a bag, the same one I use for work trips. Muscle memory guided me, as if my body had been preparing for this long, before my mind caught up. When I reached the door, Elizabeth asked if I was leaving that night. I said yes. I told her if I stayed, I'd start bargaining with a version of her that didn't exist anymore. I stepped outside and felt the air hit my lungs, sharp and grounding. My phone buzzed. A message from Derek. Just my name. No explanation. I deleted it without opening it. That chapter wasn't mine to read. If this story feels like something someone you know is living through, share it with them quietly. Sometimes people don't need advice. They need permission to leave. I drove to a small motel on the edge of town. The room smelled like detergent and endings. I lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, the ache in my chest wasn't confusion. It was grief, clean and honest. Morning came without drama. No texts, no apologies, just clarity. Elizabeth called once. I let it ring. Silence had already said everything that mattered. Later that day, I sat across from a lawyer and told him the truth without softening it. He listened, nodded, and said I'd stayed longer than most men would have. On the drive back to the house to collect the rest of my things, I felt lighter, not happy, lighter. There's a difference. Do you think walking away makes someone weak or honest? Comment your perspective, and let's actually talk about it. Elizabeth wasn't home. The house echoed as I moved through it. I took what mattered and left the rest. At the door, I didn't look back. Closure isn't a moment. It's a decision you keep making, even when it's uncomfortable. I don't hate her. I don't love her either. I love the man who finally listened to the truth when it refused to be spoken. I know some people will say I should have fought harder. Others will say I waited too long. Maybe both are true. What I know is this. Silence answered the question I was afraid to ask, and I finally respected the answer. Comment one word that describes what you had done in my place. If this story gave you clarity, please like it. Subscribe for more stories about choosing self-respect, and comment. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who are still standing in that silence.